Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and I work at the Morton Mandan Public Library as the Youth Services Assistant. I'm here today to show you how to make an Egyptian canopic jar from a Pringles can and some paper mache. So this is for one of our teen programs. This summer's theme for the summer reading program is Imagine Your Story, and that includes everything from fairy tales to ancient mythology. And while we're focusing a little bit on mythology, I thought it would be fun to do a craft that has to do with the ancient world. And so this is having to do with ancient Egypt. Canopic jars were used to hold like mummified organs actually for mummies. And we're not going to be dealing with organs today, but we're going to make the jars because they look pretty cool, and I'll show you how to make one and how to paint one. You're going to need a few things for this project. Some plain printer paper or junk mail would make a great choice for the sides. You're going to need a Pringles can or two, empty, and try to wipe out the inside. If you have an old phone book, the phone book paper pages are more pulpy and make for a great paper mache pulp. If you don't have that, that's fine. You can use just normal paper, but this is great if you have one on hand. And then a large bowl would also be great. And finally, I'm going to be using liquid starch today. So you can make paper mache a number of ways, including with flour, glue, water, but liquid starch is the fastest and easiest in my opinion. You can find this at any store. It's not super expensive. Tear up the phone book pages into even sizes. You can also use a paper shredder or your hands. Once you've torn them up, kind of loosen them up and then pour enough of the liquid starch to saturate them all without being too soggy. It's fine if you have a little extra starch in there, just so that everything is wet. Let this soak for a while. In the meantime, you can move on to the next step. Taking one strip at a time and using your fingers to smooth out the excess starch, wrap your can with strips of paper. Here's what your can should look like when you've covered it completely in one or two layers of paper mache strips. This is what a canopic jar could look like when it's finished. Before it's been painted, but after all the paper mache is dried. So I made this a couple weeks ago. It's had a chance to really dry. It is supposed to look kind of like a person. And as you can see, the main part is covered in just strips of paper mache. And then the top part is covered in the more pulpy paper mache. Now, the head is solid paper mache all the way through. The one I'm making today is going to have a hollow head. So to create that effect, we're going to take a balloon and blow it up and fasten it to the top of our can. Just like so. The benefit of having a hollow head is that the paper mache will dry much faster. So your jar should look something like this when you have the balloon completely covered in strips of paper mache. Now's the time that you want to let this dry a bit before you go any further. If you can set this outside in a hot, sunny place, that's great. Otherwise, set it in a window or someplace dry inside for an hour or two. Paper mache has been soaking in starch for, I don't know, I suppose 3 hours or more, and it should be the right consistency to start molding with. So we're going to put together a figurehead to put on top of our canopic jar. So here is our canopic jar. I decided to make this one look like a jackal. And I also decided to cover the whole can with the soft paper mache instead of just the half. I think it has a nice kind of stone quality. We'll see how it dries. I might just leave it unpainted. Let this dry for 5 to 7 days at least, and if it still feels soft, give it another couple of days. Once your paper mache is completely dry, you can start painting it. I'm going to use a acrylic paint mixture to coat the whole thing in one color, kind of sandy, and then add some details. Here's the second coat of paint on the human-looking canopic jar. As you can see, it's starting to cover up any signs of newsprint. I would add some details, maybe a little gold around the face, like a metallic gold, and some black stripes. Things like that that really make it pop. So what's the significance of canopic jars? What's that significant? How is that significant to ancient mythology? Well, during the mummification process, the viscera or organs were removed from the body of the person being mummified. Particularly the stomach, lungs, liver, and intestines, like large and small intestines, were thought to be valuable. They should be preserved separately, and so they were typically stored each in their own of 4 jars. Those jars could be simple. They were typically made from pottery or limestone, and eventually they became more elaborate as it became more of a tradition for the Egyptians. And traditionally, the 4 jars have 4 different heads, thought to represent the 4 sons of one of the Egyptian gods. And those were typically a jackal, human, some like a baboon, and a falcon. I've chosen to make a human and a jackal because I thought that would be interesting and maybe easier for me. You're welcome to make any of those or to make a simpler version. You can make it, if it's simple, just say it's more ancient. You can paint some hieroglyphics on it. If you look online, you can look up what your name looks like in Egyptian hieroglyphics and paint that on the side. If you have some metallic paint, that would be great. Often these jars were covered in precious metals, so some like gold or silver would look great. The next stage in our teen programs this summer is going to be focusing on fairy tales, I believe. So stay tuned for more information about that. Thanks for watching this video and have fun making your own creations. So here is the human canopic jar with a little bit more detail added. You can do any kind of decoration that you can think of.